The galaxy was wide and endless, filled with stars, planets, and ancient civilizations. Among them was the proud and powerful Zirath Empire, known for its advanced knowledge and strict traditions. Their diplomats were respected, feared, and never questioned. And among them stood one of the youngest and most gifted envoys, Ambassador Soraya Vera. Soraya was graceful, tall and striking with her blue skin and shining silver eyes. She had been trained from childhood to represent her people in the Council of Stars. But one thing burned deeply in her heart: she hated humans. Humans, to her, were wild creatures, too emotional, too reckless, too violent. In her eyes, they were not ready to stand among the great empires. And yet, the Galactic Council had allowed them a seat. To Soraya, this was an insult. She remembered the first time she saw humans. Their faces full of arrogance, their voices too loud, their energy uncontrolled. To her, they were a mistake of creation. She had sworn she would never respect them. And now, fate placed her in the middle of a mission where she must deal with them directly. The council chamber was filled with light. Stars shone through giant crystal windows. Soraya walked forward with her head held high. She wore the golden armor of her station, decorated with the symbols of her empire. Other alien diplomats bowed slightly when she passed. But her eyes searched for one thing: the human delegation. They were seated across the chamber. She saw their leader, a man with sharp features and strong eyes. He stood when she arrived, but Soraya only gave him a cold glance. To her, humans were nothing more than troublemakers wearing the mask of diplomacy. When the session began, Soraya spoke with calm and authority. "Humans are not to be trusted," she declared in her clear voice. "They spread chaos wherever they go. Their wars destroy planets, and their greed knows no limit." The human leader did not argue. Instead, a younger officer sitting beside him leaned forward. His name was Captain Elias Wren. Unlike the older diplomats, Elias looked fresh, full of spirit, and unafraid. "With respect, Ambassador," Elias said, "humans are not perfect, but neither is any species here. We fight because we must survive. We grow because we must adapt. You call us reckless, but sometimes courage looks like recklessness to those who fear change." The chamber fell silent. Other aliens shifted uncomfortably. Soraya's silver eyes narrowed. She did not like the way he spoke. He was too bold, too sure of himself. She looked at him with cold hatred. "Courage," she repeated. "You call burning cities courage. You call destroying world survival. Captain, what you call courage, I call destruction." Elias did not flinch. His eyes met hers. There was no anger in them, only determination. "Then maybe, Ambassador, you have only seen the worst of us, not the best." For a moment, Soraya froze. His words cut through the air like a blade. The other council members whispered among themselves. The human officer had spoken with fire, and Soraya had no quick answer. She clenched her hands, hiding the storm inside her. She hated humans, and now this one dared to challenge her. But somewhere deep inside, a small voice whispered, "Why does his courage feel different?" That night, in her private chamber aboard the Zirath starship, Soraya stood alone before the window, looking at the stars. Her thoughts were heavy. She remembered Elias's eyes. Humans always spoke with too much emotion, too much passion. And yet, his words carried truth. Could it be that she had been blind to something? No. She shook her head. Her empire had taught her well. Humans were dangerous. Humans were corrupt. She must not allow doubt to enter her heart. But the doubt was already there, small and sharp like a splinter. The next day, a new crisis was announced. A pirate fleet had attacked the neutral zone between human and Zirath space. Both humans and Zeroth envoys were ordered to investigate together. When Soraya heard the news, her heart sank. She was to travel with a human crew. Worse, Captain. Elias Wren had been chosen as her escort. Her mind screamed in protest. To be trapped on a ship with humans, to be forced to depend on them, it was unthinkable. But duty was duty. As she prepared for the mission, Soraya whispered to herself, "I will not let them change me. I will not let them touch my heart. I will prove that humans are exactly what I always believed, worthy." But somewhere in the stars, fate was already smiling. Because the story of hate was about to become a story of love. The starship Aurora drifted silently through the void, its engines glowing against the black sea of stars. Inside, two very different groups of beings prepared for a mission that neither of them truly wanted. On one side, the proud Zereth diplomat, Soraya Vera, with her cold silver eyes and golden armor. On the other, the human crew, led by Captain Elias Wren, the young officer who had dared to speak against her in the council chamber. The atmosphere was tense. The Zereth envoys walked in strict formation, their movements graceful and disciplined. The humans, by contrast, were relaxed, laughing quietly with one another, as if danger was nothing more than a game. Soraya watched them with disgust. They treat this mission like a festival, she whispered under her breath. How can such creatures survive in the galaxy? Yet when her gaze fell on Elias, her heart gave a small, unwanted stir. He was not laughing. He moved with focus, giving orders, checking equipment. His posture was strong, his eyes sharp. For a moment, Soraya almost thought he looked reliable. She quickly shook the thought away. When the ship entered the neutral zone, alarms rang. Pirates had been spotted. Ships moved like shadows in the distance, waiting, circling. The human crew quickly took their positions. Soraya stood still, her mind sharp, her face calm. Elias came to her side. "Ambassador," he said, "we'll need your cooperation. These pirates don't care about treaties. They'll destroy us." "If we're not careful," Soraya crossed her arms. "Humans always expect others to clean up their chaos. Perhaps if your kind controlled their greed, these pirates would not exist." Elias sighed, but did not argue. Instead, he leaned closer. Lowering his voice, "Ambassador, hatred won't protect you when the shooting starts. Trust will." She froze. His words pierced her pride like a knife. Trust with humans. Impossible. Yet, she noticed something. His voice was not arrogant. It was steady, calm, almost protective. It made her chest feel strange. The pirates attacked. Blazing fire lit up the dark. The Aurora shook violently as plasma rounds struck its shields. The crew shouted commands. The air filled with urgency. Elias jumped to the command console, his hands flying over controls, shields at 60%. Shouted a human officer, "Redirect power." Elias barked. His voice carried authority, strong and fearless. Soraya held the railing as the ship trembled. For the first time, she saw humans not as wild beasts, but as warriors working together. They were loud, yes, but they moved like a single heart, beating against the storm. The ship jolted again. A pirate craft slammed into them, locking claws onto the hull. Boarding had begun. Ambassador Elias shouted, "Stay behind me." He drew a weapon and rushed toward the docking corridor. Soraya's pride flared. "I do not need protection from a human," she snapped, stepping beside him. Her silver eyes glowed with anger. Elias gave her a quick glance. "Then, don't slow me down." The corridor exploded with sound as pirates burst inside creatures with jagged armor and cruel eyes. Blades clashed, weapons fired. The humans fought with raw courage, their shouts echoing through the metal halls. Soraya moved with grace, her golden armor flashing, her weapon striking with deadly precision. She fought like the warrior diplomat she had been trained to be, elegant and fierce. Yet even she could not ignore one truth: Elias was always there, moving in front of her, covering her, protecting her at one moment. A pirate raised a blade behind Soraya. Before she could react, Elias shoved her aside and took the strike across his arm. Blood sprayed, but he fought on, pushing the pirate back with sheer strength. Soraya's eyes widened. For a heartbeat, the world slowed. Human bleeding, struggling had saved her. Why? Her empire had always taught her that humans were selfish, that they only cared for themselves. But this man had risked his life for hers. Her chest tightened, confusion mixing with anger. She could not understand it. The battle ended after long, brutal minutes. The pirates retreated, their ships fleeing into the void. The Aurora was scarred, but still alive in the medical bay. Elias sat quietly while a medic wrapped his wound. Soraya stood nearby, arms crossed, trying to hide the storm inside her. "You should not have done that," she said finally. Her voice was sharp, but softer than before. "Risking your life for me was foolish." Elias looked up at her, his eyes steady. "Foolish, maybe, but necessary. I protect my crew, and right now, Ambassador, you're part of my crew." Soraya's breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like that. She was Zareth. She was above humans. Yet in that moment, she felt something unfamiliar dash respect. She turned away quickly, hiding her expression. "Do not think this changes anything," she said coldly. "I still despise your kind." But as she left the room, her steps were slower, her heart heavier. Because deep inside, she knew something was changing. And it terrified her. The ship Aurora drifted slowly through damaged space. Its shields were weakened, its engines scarred, but it still held together. The pirate attack had left everyone shaken, but alive. Ambassador Soraya stood at the observation deck, watching. The stars, her silver eyes were calm, but her heart was not. The memory of Captain Elias throwing himself in front of her played over and over in her mind. She could still see the blood, still hear the sound of his pain. Why? Why would a human risk his life for her? It made no sense. Her empire had taught her that humans only cared for themselves. Yet Elias had proved the opposite. The door behind her slid open. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. His footsteps were firm, steady, even with an injured arm. "Ambassador," Elias said, his voice low, "you should rest. Tomorrow, we begin repairs outside the neutral zone." Soraya's tone was cool. "I do not need a human to tell me when to rest." But inside, her chest tightened. His presence disturbed her, and she hated that. Later in the strategy chamber, Soraya found herself face to face with Elias again. The council had ordered them to investigate the pirate stronghold together. There was no escape. Duty demanded cooperation. "You will accompany me planet-side," Elias said, spreading out the holographic map. "The pirates' base is hidden in these ruins. We'll go as a joint team." Half Zareth, Soraya frowned. "I work alone. I do not trust your kind." Elias met her glare without fear. "Then don't trust me. Trust survival. Out there, if we don't work together, we both die." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Soraya wanted to argue, to crush his words with her pride, but she couldn't. He was right. Finally, she gave a slow nod. "Very well, but do not think this makes us allies." The next day, they landed on the ruined planet. The air was heavy with dust, the ground cracked and broken by ancient wars. Strange shadows moved among the wreckage. Soraya walked ahead with her graceful stride, her golden armor shining against the dull earth. Behind her, humans scanned the area with weapons ready. She could feel Elias's presence close by, always watchful, always alert. When they reached the ruins, the danger revealed itself. Traps, hidden by the pirates, triggered explosions and collapsing walls. One blast shook the ground beneath Soraya's feet. She stumbled just for a second, but it was enough. Strong hands caught her. Elias pulled her back, his voice sharp. "Careful, you'll get yourself killed." Soraya's cheeks burned with anger. "Unhand me," she snapped, pulling away. But her heart betrayed her. For that brief second in his arms, she had felt something strange dash safety. As they moved deeper, the group came under attack. Pirates poured from the ruins, firing with wild fury. Soraya drew her blade, moving like flowing water. Her strikes were elegant, deadly. She cut through enemies with precision, her armor glowing with power. Elias fought beside her, his blaster steady, his movements sharp and fearless. Unlike the other humans, he did not shout or panic. He was focused, calm. His bravery was not reckless, was controlled. At one point, Soraya slipped on loose rubble. A pirate raised his weapon, ready to strike her down. Elias's blaster fired first. The pirate fell. Elias stepped forward, placing himself between Soraya and danger. "Stay close," he ordered. She wanted to argue, to remind him she did not need protection. But the truth was undeniable. He had saved her again. When the battle ended, the ruins were silent once more. The pirates fled, leaving their base abandoned. The human and Zirath teams began to collect evidence. Soraya stood apart, staring at the broken stones. Her mind was a storm. Twice in one mission, Elias had risked his life for her. And each time, her hatred cracked a little more. Elias approached her quietly. His arm was still bandaged, but he carried himself with strength. "You fight well," he said simply. "You're not like the others. You're stronger." Soraya's eyes narrowed. "Flattery will not earn my trust, human." Elias gave a faint smile, not trying to, just telling the truth. She turned away quickly, but not fast enough to hide the warmth that spread across her face. That night, back on the Aurora, Soraya found herself restless. She replayed every moment in her head. The close calls, the strange way her chest tightened when Elias looked at her. She whispered to herself, as if saying the words would make them true. "I hate humans. I hate humans." But the words sounded weaker now. They no longer carried the same fire. For the first time in her life, Soraya felt uncertain. And uncertainty terrified her more than any enemy ever could. The ruins were not as empty as they first appeared. Hidden tunnels stretched deep below the surface, filled with shadows and whispers of danger. When Soraya and Elias returned to the Aurora, the council demanded they go back down with a smaller team to search further. The pirates had left too quickly. Something was hidden underground, something powerful enough to threaten both Zarath and human space. Soraya did not want to return. The planet felt cursed, full of traps and secrets. But duty left her no choice. And worse, she was once again assigned to work side by side with Elias. As their shuttle descended into the night sky, the silence between them was heavy. Soraya sat upright, her golden armor gleaming faintly under the lights. Elias sat across from her, checking his blaster, his jaw firm. Finally, she broke the silence. "Why do you humans always throw yourselves into danger? Do you not value your lives?" Elias looked up, his eyes steady. "We do value life. That's why we risk it. Sometimes you have to step into danger to protect the people behind you." His words hung in the air. Asaria turned her face away. Unsettled, he spoke with such simple honesty that it weakened her shield of hatred. The tunnels were cold and dark. The walls dripped with moisture, the air thick with dust. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the stone, remnants of an ancient civilization. Long forgotten. The team moved carefully, their lights sweeping across the walls. Every sound echoed like a warning. Suddenly, the ground shook. A hidden mechanism activated, collapsing the passage behind them. Rocks crashed down, cutting off their escape. Dust filled the air. "We're trapped," a human soldier coughed. Elias's voice was sharp but calm. "Stay together. Find another way out." Soraya's heart pounded. She hated feeling helpless. She was a Zirath diplomat, trained to stay in control. Yet now, she was locked underground with humans. With Elias, as they pressed deeper, they discovered the truth. The pirates had uncovered an old weapon, left buried by the ancients. Its power hummed through the tunnels, dangerous and unstable. Elias frowned at the glowing core. If they had taken this off-world, it could have destroyed entire colonies. Soraya stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "Then we must destroy it here, before they return." Their plan was simple, but deadly. Set explosives, collapse the chamber, and escape before the blast. But when they tried to activate the charges, the weapons surged, releasing waves of unstable energy. The humans were thrown to the ground. Soraya staggered, her head ringing. "Ambassador!" Elias shouted, rushing to her side. His arm wrapped around her, steadying her. For a moment, she let him hold her, too dizzy to resist. She felt his strength, his warmth, his steady presence, and it terrified her more than the weapon itself. The tunnels shook again. The energy wave triggered another collapse. The ceiling cracked, sending massive stones crashing down. One block fell directly toward Soraya. She froze. But before she could react, Elias slammed into her, shoving her out of the way. The stone crashed onto his shoulder, pinning him to the ground. Soraya's eyes widened in shock. "No!" she cried, rushing to him. Dust filled the air as Elias groaned in pain, trying to push the stone off. His face was pale, but his eyes still burned with determination. "Go," he said through gritted teeth. "Get out before the whole chamber falls." Soraya's heart twisted. She had spent her life believing humans were selfish, but here he was, ready to die so she could live. She knelt beside him, her voice fierce. "I will not leave you. Do you hear me, human? I will not." With strength born of desperation, she pressed her hands against the stone, her muscles straining. Slowly, painfully, she shifted it enough for Elias to crawl free. His arm hung limp, but he managed a weak smile. "You're stronger than you look," he whispered. For the first time, Soraya didn't answer with coldness. Instead, her lips trembled with something she didn't want to name. Together, limping and breathless, they planted the last of the charges and set the timer. The tunnels rumbled as they ran, the weapon's energy growing unstable. The blast was coming, and fast, faster. Elias urged, though his wounded arm slowed him. Soraya grabbed his good arm, pulling him with her. For once, she didn't care about pride or appearances. She just wanted him alive. They reached the last open passage as the charges detonated. Fire and stone roared behind them. The explosion lit up the tunnels like a second sun. They dove forward, collapsing onto the ground as the entrance sealed shut. Silence followed. Only their heavy breathing broke the stillness. Elias lay on his back, staring at the stars through the cracked opening above. His chest rose and fell with exhaustion. Soraya knelt beside him, her silver eyes wide with unspoken emotions. "You saved me," she whispered. He turned his head toward her, smiling faintly despite his pain. "And you saved me? Guess we're even now." But Soraya knew it was not about being even. Something had changed between them. Something dangerous, forbidden, but undeniable. That night, back on the Aurora, Soraya stood alone in her quarters. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. She whispered the words she once believed with all her soul. "I hate humans." But now the words felt broken, hollow, because deep inside she knew the truth. Hate was fading, and in its place something far stronger had begun to grow. The Aurora sailed through silent space, leaving the ruined planet behind. The pirate threat was destroyed, the ancient weapon buried forever. But for Ambassador Soraya, the battle inside, her was only beginning. She stood at her chamber window, staring at the stars. Her reflection looked calm, as always, but inside she felt like a storm. She remembered Elias trapped under the stone, bleeding and in pain. She remembered his eyes, steady even when death was near. And most of all, she remembered his words. "You're part of my crew." Why did those words keep echoing in her heart? Why did they feel warmer than any praise from her own people? She whispered, almost angrily, "I cannot. I must not." But her voice broke. The next day, Soraya was called to the medical bay. Elias had refused full rest, but his injuries needed treatment. She entered quietly, expecting to see weakness. Instead, she found him sitting upright, laughing softly with one of his crew despite the bandages around his arm. When he noticed her, the smile faded, replaced by a calm seriousness. "Ambassador," he said, "I didn't expect you to visit." She hesitated, then walked closer, her silver eyes narrowing. "You should be resting, not wasting your strength on foolish jokes." Elias gave a small grin. "A cug keeps the cog. Joking keeps the pain away. Besides, I'm still alive, thanks to you." Her chest tightened. She wanted to deny it, to remind him she only acted out of duty. But the truth pressed against her pride. She had saved him because she could not bear to lose him. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Elias spoke again, his voice quieter. "Can I ask you something, Ambassador?" Soraya folded her arms. "If you must." "Why do you hate us so much?" he asked gently. "What did humans ever do to you, personally?" The question struck her like a blade. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her thoughts tangled. She had repeated the reasons her whole life. Humans were violent, greedy, reckless. But now, face to face with him, those words felt empty. Finally, she said, "Your kind spreads war. You destroy worlds. You act without wisdom." Elias nodded slowly. "Some of that is true, but not all. We've made mistakes, yes. But we also build, protect, and sacrifice, just like I did for you." His eyes locked on hers, steady and calm. "Maybe you don't hate us. Maybe you just fear what you don't understand." Her breath caught. No one had ever dared speak to her like that. No one had ever looked past her armor of pride. She felt anger, but also something far more dangerous. The spark of truth. Later that evening, a storm shook the Aurora. A sudden surge from the ship's damaged reactor sent alarms blaring. Power flickered, lights dimmed. The crew rushed to stabilize the core. Soraya, against her instincts, went to the control deck. There she found Elias again, giving orders despite his injuries. His voice was steady, guiding his people with courage. Even in crisis, he carried himself with strength. When a console sparked dangerously near a young crewman, Elias moved without thinking, shielding the boy with his own body. Soraya's eyes widened. He risked himself again, not for glory, but for someone weaker. And in that moment, her wall of hatred cracked further. She had been raised to see humans as selfish, but Elias was proving, again and again, that humans could be selfless in ways even her people were not. After the crisis passed, she found herself outside the control deck, waiting. When Elias stepped out, tired but alive, she spoke before she could stop herself. "You are reckless," she said softly. "Always throwing yourself into danger. Yet, your crew follows you. They trust you. They believe in you." Elias gave her a tired smile. "And what about you, Ambassador? Do you still believe I'm just another reckless human?" Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what she believed. She turned quickly, her armor clinking softly. "Do not ask me such questions again," she whispered. But her voice lacked its old strength. That night, in her quarters, Soraya could not sleep. She thought of her childhood, of the lessons drilled into her. Humans are dangerous. Humans cannot be trusted. Those words had once been her truth, but now Elias's face haunted her. His courage, his sacrifice, his honesty. She pressed her hand to her chest, where her heart raced painfully. "No, this cannot be," she whispered. "Hi, Amzarath, he is human. This is impossible." And yet, deep inside, she knew the truth was already written. The walls she had built around her heart were breaking, and when walls break, something new always takes their place. The aurora floated silently among the stars. The pirate threat was gone, but inside the ship, a new storm brewed, one that no knew. Council could predict Ambassador Soraya Vera sat alone in her quarters. Her golden armor rested on its stand, leaving her in simple robes of silver fabric. For once, she looked less like a proud diplomat and more like a woman trapped in her own thoughts. Her mind kept returning to Elias. His voice, his courage, the way he had looked at her when he said she was part of his crew. Those words burned in her heart. They should have been meaningless, but instead, they gave her something she had never felt before. Belonging, but it was forbidden. She was Zarath. He was human. Even friendship between their kinds was fragile, and love was unthinkable. She pressed her hand against the cold window and whispered, "This must not happen." Yet her heart whispered back, "It already has." The next day, duty forced them together again. Soraya and Elias were ordered to present their mission report to the Galactic Council via holographic transmission. They stood side by side, summarizing how they had destroyed the ancient weapon and survived the pirate ambush. When the transmission ended, silence filled the chamber. Soraya turned to leave, but Elias spoke quietly. "Ambassador, wait." Stopped, her back straight, but her voice sharp. "What is it, human?" Elias stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "I know you don't want to admit it, but something has changed between us. You don't look at me with the same hatred anymore." Her heart raced. She wanted to deny it, to push him away. But his eyes, steady, fearless, honest, stripped her defenses. "You are mistaken," she said firmly, but her voice shook. "No," Elias said softly. "I've seen it. The way you protect me, the way you hesitate when you speak to me. You feel it too, don't you?" Her breath caught. For the first time in her life, Soraya, the unshakable Zeroth diplomat, could not find words. That evening, they found themselves together again, this time by chance. The observation deck was empty, stars glowing beyond the glass. Elias stood quietly, his arms still bandaged. Staring at the endless void, Soraya entered without a word, but her footsteps gave her away. He glanced back, then returned his gaze to the stars. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Elias said. "Billions of stars, billions of worlds. And somehow, two people from different species end up here, together." She folded her arms, trying to hide the tremble in her chest. Together, but only for duty. Elias turned to her then, his eyes deep and unflinching. "No, not just for duty." Soraya froze as he stepped closer. The silence between them grew heavy, charged with something neither of them wanted to name. "You're not supposed to care about me," Elias said softly, "and I'm not supposed to care about you. But I do." Her lips parted, her heart hammering. In her chest, she whispered, "You cannot say this. It is forbidden." "I know," he admitted, "but it's the truth." For a long moment, she stared into his eyes, searching for arrogance, for lies, for weakness. She found none. Only honesty. Only warmth. And before she could stop herself, she whispered, "I care too." The words broke her. She felt both terrified and free. She, who had sworn to hate humans, had just confessed the unthinkable, that she cared for one. Elias reached for her hand, slowly, as if afraid she would pull away. She almost did. But instead, her fingers curled against his, trembling. It was wrong. It was forbidden, yet it felt more real than anything she had ever known. "Soraya," Elias whispered, for the first time using her name instead of her title. "Whatever happens next, I don't regret this. Not one moment." Tears stung her silver eyes. Zirath did not cry. But in front of him, she could no longer pretend to be made of stone. A sudden alert broke the moment. The ship's warning sirens blared. Another disturbance had been detected near their sector. The human crew rushed to stations, and Soraya and Elias were forced apart. As they moved down separate corridors, their hands reluctantly slipped away. Duty was pulling them back into the roles they were supposed to play. But something had changed. Forever. The walls between them were gone. And even if the galaxy stood against them, the truth could not be undone. She despised humans once. But now, her heart told a different story. The alarm still echoed through the halls of the Aurora. Red lights flashed, and the voice of the ship's AI announced, "Unidentified vessel detected. Prepare for possible engagement." Soraya hurried to the control deck, her robe flowing behind her. Elias was already there, giving sharp orders. The crew moved quickly, their trust in him unshaken even under threat. On the screen, massive Zirath warship appeared. The Valoran, one of the Empire's most feared vessels. Its golden hull gleamed, a symbol of Zera's pride and power. Soraya's heart sank. If her people saw her here, working with humans, questions would be raised. And if they discovered the truth in her heart, she would be destroyed. The commander of the Valoran appeared on the holoscreen. His silver eyes were cold, his tone harsh. "Ambassador Soraya Vera, you were sent to oversee, not to fraternize with humans. Explain yourself." Soraya stood tall, but inside, her chest ached. The mission was a success. The pirate weapon has been destroyed. The commander's gaze shifted to Elias, who stood beside her. "And yet, you stand too close to this human. Tell me, Ambassador, where does your loyalty lie? With the Zerath Empire, or with him?" Gasps filled the deck. The question was a blade cutting at her soul. Elias glanced at her, silent, his eyes steady. He knew the danger. If she chose him, her people would cast her out. If she chose her, Empire, she would lose him forever. For a long moment, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Soraya's mind screamed to follow duty, to repeat the lessons of her childhood. Humans cannot be trusted. Humans are beneath us. But then she remembered. Elias saving her life again and again. His courage in the council. His honesty when no one else dared speak. The warmth of his hand in hers. Slowly, Soraya stepped forward. Her voice was clear, carrying across both ships. "My loyalty is to the truth. And the truth is this. I once hated humans. I saw them as reckless and dangerous. But one human showed me something greater. Courage, sacrifice, and love. I will not deny it." The deck went silent. Her words rang like thunder. The commander's face twisted with fury. "You betray your people for a human. You would choose corruption over duty." Soraya lifted her chin. "If love is corruption, then perhaps my people have been blind for too long. This human has shown me more honor than many of my own kind." The commander raised his hand. Then you are no longer Zareth. You are exile. The connection cut. The Valoran turned, its engines glowing as it prepared to leave. They had abandoned her, cast her out of the only home she had ever known. Soraya stood frozen, her body trembling though she tried to remain proud. Elias stepped closer, his voice low but strong. "You didn't have to do that," he said. Her silver eyes turned to him, shimmering with both pain and freedom. "I did, because the walls of hate are gone. And without them, only truth remains. I choose you, Elias, even if the galaxy turns against me." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Elias reached for her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. "You're not alone," he said. "Maybe you lost your empire, but you've gained something greater." Tears slid down her cheeks, something no Zeroth diplomat would ever show in public. Yet here, with him, she no longer cared. Weeks later, the Galactic Council convened again. Whispers filled the chamber. An alien diplomat who had once despised humans now stood beside one, united. Some called it betrayal. Others called it hope. When Soraya spoke, her voice carried with new strength. "Our galaxy cannot survive on hatred. I was proof of that hatred. But I have learned that even across the deepest divide, understanding can grow. If an alien who despised humans can come to love one, then perhaps peace is not impossible." The chamber buzzed with shock. But among the murmurs, seeds of change were planted. That night, on the Aurora, Soraya stood once more at the window, Elias beside her. The stars stretched endlessly, filled with danger, but also with possibility. She whispered almost to herself, "Do you think the galaxy will ever accept this? Accept us?" Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday. Because change always starts with one choice, one story, one love." Her hand slipped into his. She no longer resisted. For the first time in her life, Soraya felt free, not as a Zareth, not as a diplomat, but as herself. And somewhere among the stars, the future began to shift. Because once an alien diplomat had hated humans, until she fell in love with one,